ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to our last grand finale, where this is our third event. Let me see if I can get out of the screen sharing so you can see my face. Can you see me, everybody? Okay, wonderful. Let me turn off the background light. Okay, my name is Hezekiel Eskender, and I'm with Worldwide Ethiopian Civic Station Network, and I see my sister, Dr. Bulu from North Carolina. Welcome again. And we have a packed event. We're going to get started, so we don't want to be caught behind the 8 ball again. That means being late in the US lingo. And I'm gonna I was going to introduce Dr. Sahai. My computer has frozen. I'll give it one more shot. See if it works. Maybe it's not frozen. Dr. Sahai Lamayo, Professor Sahai Lamayo, a retired professor from Savannah State. And the sad thing is, I went behind his back and got some background information on him, so I can surprise him today. But he must have sent me a virus to freeze my computer, but it's working now. So at least I might be able to do it. Maybe. I don't know. Dr. Sahai, are you there?
I am here. I know me very well.
Okay. But I wanted to introduce you to the rest of the public, but go ahead. I'll talk about you later on.
Right.
And in fact, actually, according to the schedule, we have to let our glorious leader, the executive director of the Ethiopian Community Association of Atlanta, to give us a big welcome address in 1 minute. I'm going to give everybody 1 minute. Go ahead, Yonas. Mr. Yonas Tamiru. Until Yonas gets to his mic, I'll let Dr. Sahai introduce himself and our first guest.
All right. Thank you, Ezekiel. I really want to thank you. I don't know if I should reserve this to last, to the end of the program, but I want everyone to know how important you've been to this effort for our community. Yonas came up with this notion of organizing a series of events to help mobilize our people to participate in the electoral process. And he reached out to you, and you have been a godsend. And I want to thank you for that. It's not enough that I know that you've done great things. It's also important that everyone does. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. So,
Yonas, are you there?
Let him continue.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
So, our leader, Yonas, who is the CEO of the Ethiopian Community Center of Atlanta, usually gives us greetings on behalf of our association and on behalf of all the residents of Atlanta of Ethiopian origin. He must have stepped up somewhere. I think he'll come back and do that in a few. We're a bit behind, so without much further ado, let me introduce, or let me just say a couple of things about the structure of our evening. As we've done in the past, what we will have is a series of presenters who have specialized expertise in topics that are of interest to the political discourse today. And they give us the foundation that we shall use to converse with candidates, but also to understand the agenda of both sides in each contest that we are getting ready to vote on. And we have three such guests today, and one of them it's my honor to introduce her, Miss Ann Dennis. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. For the first time in my life, I had to ask other people if I'm saying their name correctly. It's usually me who's being asked to state their names. Miss Ann Dennis is Executive Director of Common Cause Georgia. And in that capacity, she combines her passion for social impact, culture, boots on the ground, and organizing policy and elections. She plans to deepen Common Cause engagement locally, statewide, and nationally. Anna brings to Common Cause her expertise in election mobilization, issue advocacy, and voting rights. Prior to joining the team at Common Cause, she was the Senior National Coordinator for the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights under the law. She focused on organizing election protection programs in key states and assisted the national program to ensure equal access to the voting booth and coordinating community engagement platforms. Prior to the Lawyers Committee, Anna worked as an elections trainer with Montgomery County Board of Elections in Maryland, focusing on the alignment of policies and training. She has worked with several nonprofits and government bodies, including Rock the Vote, Service Employers, International Union, the White House Project, as well as with the Georgia General Assembly. When Anna is not in office, you can find her globe-trotting, exploring international dialogues, listening to music, and nature walking with her daughter. Anna is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and she received her BA in political science from Hollins University. I welcome you, Anna, to our conversation tonight, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say on critical issues important to this election. Welcome. The floor is yours.
So is the floor mine?
Yes.
Before interrupting you, Anna, this is Ezekiel again. I want everybody who's participating here, we are recording this, and I want you to know that we are recording it for both our own record, and eventually we'll change it to a YouTube video for our organization. Go ahead, Anna. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you all.
A little bit different from the picture. Go ahead. Your hair is a little different from the picture, but it's good. I like this one better. Go ahead.
Yeah, but thank you all for having me here tonight. I'm stepping in for Dr. Janae, Dr. Camus. Just what we have going on down here in Georgia is that we have one of the most critical elections of my lifetime thus far. We have our Senate runoffs that are happening on Tuesday. We're just really urging people to really get out the vote, and let's do it again like we did in November, like we did in September, like we've done in September, in June and May. This is a very critical Senate race that really will change the tide of what we're seeing across the country. This could impact what we see in criminal justice. This impacts what we see in healthcare. So the Senate race and also our Public Service Commission race is critically important to how we raise our families here and how we're able to actually thrive and survive as Georgians here. As most people know, the last 4 years has been very different for us down here, and this is more critical than ever. So I've been telling people, if you haven't already, cast your ballot in person during early voting, or if you haven't already sent back in your absentee ballot, please take your absentee ballots or your vote by mail ballot to one of your local county elections drop boxes. Please put that ballot in the drop boxes. If you are voting in person, make sure you make a plan to vote. Polls are open on Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If anyone is like me, a working parent with a small toddler who runs around and just keeps me on my toes, make a plan to when you can take yourself and your family members to vote with you. If you have family members who have not already voted, make sure you're taking them with you and tell them, let them lead the charge of bringing 2 other people or 5 other people with them. So we want to make sure that we can get out for this election, no matter how you vote. I generally don't really care how people vote, as long as they are doing the process of voting. Make sure you have your voices exercised during this process. When people ask me what's really going on in Georgia, I tell them this election has been a circus. It's a circus every day in our state. There are many political actors who look at this as like it's theater, but I tell people this is our everyday lives down here, and these election is very critical. People down here in Georgia are struggling to, have resources. We have hundreds of thousands of people who apply weekly for unemployment assistance. We have people who need rental assistance. We have people who are in fear of losing their homes to foreclosures. We have most of our schools most of us are at home working virtually, and our children are being taught at home by us. And I always say that I'm glad my daughter's a toddler, because I realize I am not the best teacher for her. So we want our kids to be back in school, and we want them to be in a very safe and healthy environment, meaning that we want our teachers to be safe. We want more accessibility to vaccines that will come here. We do not want it to be for the privileged and those who can most afford these critical things. So this election is very key. It's very important. If people are having issues when they're going out to vote on Tuesday, please call the 866 Our Vote election protection hotline. We are staffed from like 6 a.m. until literally the last person in Georgia votes. I always tell people that on election day, my date is not in until probably 3 a.m. that morning, when the last person has voted, when the ballots are all at the place where we will be counting ballots. That's when my night ends, and it starts again that 6 a.m. the next morning. So we want to make sure that if anyone's having the issues, they know to call the 866 Our Vote hotline, and we have trained attorneys and legal professionals who will be answering questions and responding to issues that are reported. We have many people who will be out in the field on election day at polling locations, at precincts, making sure that if there are any type of critical needs, like if there's something with line management, we're there to help. If there are issues that are coming up, that we can make sure that we can troubleshoot with the counties on the spot. So if you see something, say something, please call the 866 Our Vote hotline and reach out to us even on social media. We have teams that are very responsive to really answering questions like, where is my precinct? Has it changed? Different things like that. Or, oh, they're telling us that the polls are closing early. So we want to hear those things, but we will be around and we are available to assist folks when it's needed. So definitely, please, let's charge our families to get out there and vote. Let's make sure that they know how they can vote and where they can vote, like their locations and what time polls open and close. And if you have any issues, please reach out to the 866 Our Vote hotline. And I'll still be on the Zoom webinar. If you all have any questions, I'm definitely willing to field them. And make sure that I always tell people that this election is so critical that they've made it so hard for people to vote here in Georgia. And if it wasn't so important, they wouldn't make it so hard. So if they're making it so hard, that means that I'm definitely going to go out on Tuesday, although I've already early voted. But I'm definitely going to make sure that everyone in my family knows why this election is so critical for Georgians and for the rest of our country, because they're not making it any simpler for us to be able to cast our vote and cast our ballot and make our voices heard in an equitable and fair way. So thank you all.
Well, thank you, Anna. We really appreciate that great insight, that challenge you put to us to go out and vote on Tuesday. I can't agree more about how critical this particular election is. I have a paper I read every day that's a British newspaper, The Guardian and The Observer. One of the big articles they have today is, how is the world going to be different in 2021? And they have a series of regions they cover in the United States. They say a return to normalcy, and under that, say the most important thing, the most important determinant on whether or not America becomes normal again is this election. The outcome of this election will determine whether the United States becomes the country we love and admire and we're happy to live in and work in, or it becomes a country like has happened in the last several years that people try to flee away from, and which is the first time in the history of this nation for Americans to say, I would rather live elsewhere. And we have a responsibility to make sure, as Anna told us, that not only do we vote, we should make sure that everybody that we know also votes. Thank you, Anna. We appreciate that.
Dr. Tsai, our video department is requesting you show your face because we only see below your nose. So if you can adjust the angle. Thank you very much.
There you go. Yes, I have to sit back, I think.
And Mr. Yonas, are you in? Okay, Mr. Yonas is not in, so I'll take this opportunity to say a few words about Professor Tsai Alemayehu, the gentleman you just heard, Professor Emeritus Economics, Ethiopian Community Association in Atlanta, interim community relations leader, as well as he is the chairman of this conference. He's the only one who opens it and closes it. Everybody else, we are all peons. He was also a professor of economics in the business department at Savannah State University. Tsai Alemayehu was employed at Savannah State University since the mid-1980s until retirement a few years ago. And he studied economics at the University of Kentucky and has worked in a number of institutions. You don't think I knew this one. Including at the National Bank of Ethiopia, where he directed the research department until the mid-1980s, until he came here. Welcome, Professor. So this is the first time we introduced them officially, even though we have been doing this the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I'm going to say a few words about this model we came up with, organization. I'm an executive director of Worldwide Ethiopian Civic Association. We want to invite subject matter experts, say a few words about the hot button issues, and then transition from seminar to town hall meeting and bring the candidates. We give them half an hour each. We're going to start with Mr. Blackman, then Mr. Reverend Warnock, and then Mr. John Asaf. And they will have a question and answer period. So far, Mr. Asaf, I think, is sending people. We haven't heard from him yet, but we'll continue with our seminar. And then without further ado, I will let the good doctor, Professor Tsahay Alamayo, introduce our moderator who will be moderating the two lawyers. We have a third one, Daraja is also here. I'll say a few words about Daraja after the two lawyers speak. Okay, go ahead and introduce our
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
I appreciate you welcoming me to Georgia, 35 years too late.
You still need to adjust your angle. You're still looking at your
goodness.
eyes. Yeah.
I have no idea.
Wonderful.
How about now?
Oh, this is good. Yes.
I was just thanking you about welcoming me to the state of Georgia.
Okay.
Even though you're 35 years a little late. Thank you just the same.
Can you center your picture?
And today is a great day to be a Kentucky alum. Both my football team and my basketball team won. Thank you very much. But on a more serious note, our moderator, who I have the pleasure to introduce, actually the person who is responsible to introducing me to this city. We lived in this town maybe 5 years without knowing anyone except for the people we'd known previously, our family members and friends. And we somehow were connected with the next person, and she connected us with the rest of the city. And we're very grateful to her for that. I'm speaking of Mawet Mangiste. It's quite interesting, except for those in this call that are non-Ethiopian. I probably would be my introduction would be redundant since everyone seems to know her. But for the benefit of the general audience, let me say a few things about Mawet. Mawet Mangiste was born in Addis, in Ethiopia. She migrated to the United States when she was 18. And she's an author and a poet. Her first book, all of her books are in Amharic, Yehilm Hilm, which loosely translates as Mother of All Dreams, with a collection of poems. And her second book, which she published a year and a half ago, Yenuguslich, is a compilation of poetry and short stories. Yenuguslich, again, loosely translates to the child of a king. Her latest literary harvest, at Hejim, again, for those who don't speak Amharic, it means as you cannot live, addressed to a female. That too is a collection of short stories. Mawet uses her writings to reflect, her writings reflect the combination of her upbringings in Ethiopia and her life here in the United States. Mawet strongly believes in creating awareness and talking about unmentionable taboos. Her short stories and poems truly reflect her roots and upbringings, or brings out social issues, so people start talking about them, hopefully leading to solutions. An accountant by training, a mother to a beautiful daughter, and God only knows where she gets the time. Mawet is a member of a poetry and writing club called Laureates, has a weekly radio program in Atlanta, her favorite place of residence. This radio program provides the vital information to the Ethiopian community. Her team invites experts, arranges a forum to discuss current issues where listeners can call and share their views. I had the pleasure of being a guest on one of those shows, and a very great program it is. Mavit, welcome, and good to see you after COVID hibernation.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be amongst a kind of you people. Thank you again. One correction, I added another book. So I have a fourth book, which says I cannot be silent. When translated, it's also in Amharic. But enough about me. Dr. Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. To explain this and why Blacks in America are unequally under the law because of racism and implicate bias, how discrimination, injustice, and police brutality can be controlled and eventually eliminated by using the power of vote and through persistent civil engagement. Please welcome Attorney Shakespeare Fayisa. To say a few things about him, he was born in Ethiopia, came to United States in early 90s. He attended half of high school and all of his college, including law school in Seattle, Washington. He went to Seattle University School of Law and graduated in 2002. He passed his bar and worked for the prestige law firm of Preston Gates and Italy, Bill Gates' father-in-law firm. Then started his own practice. He focused on civil rights, personal injury, and criminal defense cases. He had served trials and won awards as a trial lawyer. He is now an Ethiopian committee for successful defending a lawsuit brought by the former Prime Minister Meles Zenawi and high official against the radio station here in United States. Attorney Shakespeare is also in Seattle NAACP, head of the League Readers. Please welcome Attorney Shakespeare.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, great. I guess, do I have to say something now, or do I?
Yes, that's it. The forum is yours. You got 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, on the subject that I was given, right?
Yeah, on anything you want, and you're going to make your case. But this is a courtroom.
All right. Okay, so I think I was asked to speak on the police brutality and surrounding basically police misconduct and how we can make a difference as citizens, as people who are voting, and by getting involved in the political process. So the police brutality case, at least for the law, it comes from, stems from the law, what we call the 1983, Section 1983, or it is, for those who know the United States Code, it is 42 USC Section 1983 that came about to start with in 1871. Back in 1871, this law was enacted to prevent the Ku Klux Klan members, who are also the sheriffs, who are also state officials, who have been harassing and lynching or participating in humane treatment of minorities and mainly blacks. So this law was enacted in 1871 to prevent those state actors who the law calls people who act under the color of law. So after that, after the the KKK thing is winding down, now the police took over the harassment and the mistreatment of minorities, especially blacks or African Americans in this country. For that, the United States Code, the federal law, was enacted as 42 United States Code 1983. Basically, what the law says, that is the law that every time you see people suing the police individually or the municipalities, for example, the Seattle police, I don't know, the Atlanta police or the DC police or, whatever, when you hear those lawsuits, people are suing under this 1983, Section 1983. Don't get it confused. It's not the year 1983. It is Section 1983, 42, 1983. Basically, that law allows citizens to bring an action against a state actor, a state official, anybody acting under the color of law, like a police officer mostly, when they deprive you of your rights and your constitutional right or your federal rights by false arrest. People say when there's a police brutality, we all focus on when the police shoots people. But that is only one aspect of it, because we see the shootings and we see people dying, that the excessive force aspect of it. But this law gives you right to sue the police for false arrest, for malicious prosecution, for unreasonable search and seizure, and sexual assault, and those kind of things. Of course, the excessive force is one of it. Excessive force is when the police uses unnecessary force to kill or cause serious bodily harm against a citizen. So when you would say that the law is clear, most of the time we see it on video, that when the police officer is acting in a manner that is excessive and unreasonable, then why don't the defendants always win? Or why don't the defendants always prevail in court and those police officers are not punished? So there were two things. One, I'm talking about the civil side of it, where the defendant, the police officer, or any official or the city deprive you of your constitutional right in the way that I described above. And there's also a criminal prosecution for this. The criminal prosecution has to be brought by the prosecutor, which is also a state actor. And these police officers, when they do something to you, they face two charges. One is, the civil side, and the other one is the criminal side. So briefly, the criminal side, and many people say, like, George Floyd's case, and many of those cases, in George Floyd's case, they probably get a conviction, and Breonna Taylor and many, many other cases, they don't get convicted criminally. And then, of course, the family, in some cases, they do get monetary compensation. So we have to make the distinction between the criminal and the civil cases. The criminal cases, the standard is very high to meet, whereas the civil cases, the standard is a little low and it's easier to prove. Even though in the police cases, which I do a lot of those cases. It's an extremely difficult bar to meet. At any rate, so the state, for example, in Washington State, where I live and practice, so every time a police shoots someone, the state puts that police officer, the state or the city, the state, of course, those state troopers, the city puts that police officer on a paid leave. And then what we call here, and I'm pretty sure in every state they have different procedures, we call inquest. That inquest is just asks one question only. Did the officer's action, was it excessive and unreasonable or not? So on this cases, but you have to look at the law. If the officer's action somehow is found to be excessive and unreasonable, he would be prosecuted for criminal conduct or criminal charges. But it's so hard to meet that bar because the law says in Washington state, which we are fighting to change, and probably just because of the case we just did recently is changing, the officer's subjective belief, the officer, what he thought that day, he could have a bad day, he would be scared that day, he would be a little jumpy that day. So his subjective belief, the officer, all he has to say, he takes the stand and under oath just say, I'm afraid for my life. It doesn't matter. It would be a little kid with a play or a toy gun, a water gun. If the police officer felt that he is scared, and then that is the standard is, whatever that police officer felt would be believed and taken as fact, and therefore not a lot of criminal charges are brought because of the officer's subjective belief, which is extremely, in my opinion, is almost disturbing that, you would believe the police officer after shooting someone, were you afraid for your life? Of course, they're going to say yes all the time. And then so you're left with the civil action. So the prosecutor, that's why the police officers always avoid and escape prosecution. That's why a lot of people say like, oh, we saw him on a video shooting this person, sometimes young people, sometimes a pregnant woman, whatever it is that people are unarmed, but they're not going to go to jail because a lot of the laws in the state are written to protect the police officers. Even in the civil side, after you establish, you go to court and you file in federal court, the lawyers for the police officers in the city, the municipalities, they come and say qualified immunity. Later on, I would speak to, what we can do as an electors, what we should expect from our elected officials, what they should do for us in terms of police brutality and how we can change the system as citizens. So there is this thing called qualified immunity. The police officers they shouldn't be burdened or inhibited from doing their job because they're afraid that they're going to be sued. Therefore, they have qualified immunity, they're doing their job. Being a police is very hard, and they have to go to their, their family at night, and there's a lot of shooting happening against the police officers. If you ask me, I have a different opinion about that. But so these officers cannot be restricted or limited or inhibited from doing their official duty. Therefore, they are not. They're not. They shouldn't be held liable even for the civil case. I already spoke to the criminal part of it. The action has to exceed all reasonable bounds for the police officers to be successfully prosecuted, even in the civil side, and for the family to get money from the municipalities. So briefly, that's what it is. Now the Black Lives Matter came in, and these issues came to light, and now we have globally people have been protesting. And the other thing is the technology, that now that we have our phone cameras, that people, what has been happening for hundreds of years, now people can see it on their own eyes, can judge, what happened to George Floyd, and a lot of those events has been taped and broadcasted because of the social media, because of technology. Now we can see all the police brutality out here in the open. So the Black Lives Matter, one thing it did, it capitalized on that. Of course, some people say it shouldn't be only Black lives, all lives should matter, but obviously, as we know, the lives that have been taken away, the lives that have been disproportionately harmed are the Black lives. Therefore, Black Lives Matter really, it does matter. And still, I mean, long ways to go. There is now certain awareness, but there is no changes. There is no, for the systemic, and a system that has been for a long time, since the Ku Klux Klan, the system that came to be today, the police officers that could carry a gun and shoot people with impunity. We have long ways to go. There is no systematic changes, even after all of this. Even today, all the laws that I described are.
You have 2 minutes remaining. I
Okay,
apologize for that.
all the laws are still on, they're still there. So when I end, I just want to say the voters, at least as a civic engagement, what we should ask our elected officials should be, one, there should be a diverse police force. We should all get involved and become police officers. The requirement to become a police officer, that you have to have a clean driver license. If you have a little bit of ticket, speeding ticket or something, you cannot be a police officer. All those are very unfair. Maybe they should put a time limit on it. If in 5 years or in 10 years, if you don't have a ticket, you should be a police officer. And at least three or four things, what we should ask our legislators or our elected officials should be, every cop in federal level, it should be mandated. Every cop should wear the dash cam or the camera, and the camera should work. If the gun the city gives them works, the camera should work as well. Any killing should be reviewed by an independent entity, not the police department itself. Abolish the qualified immunity I stated earlier, and the chokehold, the chokehold that killed George Floyd and others should be outlawed. And I hope I try to jump through it, but I guess I'm done for now.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for sharing the information. Like we said, always information is power. Having that information available for each one of us is very important. So now we know what we request from our elected officials. And thank God for cell phone camera. We got to see the truth. Our next presenter will be Attorney Fizum Achamila Alamu, licensed to practice in Commonwealth of Virginia and District of Columbia. Attorney Fizum has a law office of Alamu, Fizum Alamu, started January of 2004 to present. Represents clients in federal appeal courts, circuit court, and state federal district court, immigration courts, Board of Immigration, appeal, and administrative agencies, including Citizenship Immigration Services, researched and interrupt rules, regulation, status, and decision of the Supreme Courts and appeals circuit courts and Board of Immigration. Appeals in the area of immigration, family, criminal law, prepares and files pleads and legal memorandums, briefs and complaints, responding to motions and settlements agreements. Prepare multiple types of immigration forms, including asylum applications, review documents to be filed in support of applicants. Write letters to administrative agencies, including citizenship and immigration services. Prepare clients and witnesses for interview, hearings, and disputes. Consult non-immigrant attorneys about of criminal convictions for immigrants and write a monthly column in Amharic about the American law. He has publications also. Please welcome Attorney Fitsum Achamela Alamayo to explain the impacts of our vote shaping the next future judiciary. It's yours.
Thank you. Good evening and Happy New Year to all. I've been asked to speak about systemic racism and its contribution where we are today. So how does it start? It starts from the beginning, from the get-go, from the Constitution, and from the people who wrote this Constitution. As you may know, the founding fathers were slave owners. They don't really care about Black people, about how the system should somehow benefit them. So when they wrote the Constitution, they didn't even consider them as men, but this country came from that kind of horrible treatment of people to where we are now, where we have a vice president, where we have vice president of African and Asian American origin. We have a Black president 8 years ago. So one positive thing about the U.S. is it has the capacity and the energy to correct itself. That's what we have seen in this Black Lives Matter movement, where Blacks, whites, Latinos, and everybody joined together to fight this excessive use of force and police brutality. So we came from slavery to separate but equal, to sitting in the same restaurant together, to work side by side, to go to same school, and be an equal member of this society. But there are, as Shakespeare said, there are still problems. There is excessive use of force. There is police brutality, and there are a lot of things that I'm going to talk about. We can see the system's racism not only in the federal law, but in the state ordinance, in the county ordinance, in the state laws, and in the state criminal codes, in the city code. So, like, if somebody, as Shakespeare mentioned, if somebody has a reckless driving charge, then he could be fired from his job, from driving for Uber, from driving for a school bus, or any other. So there are small laws that we in our daily life would not consider as a part of the systemic racism. So that could affect people's lives. that that the city or the county or the state had put in the books, and also how the prosecutors, how judges are elected to enforce that law. And I you know, I've been going to court every day. I've seen a lot of people. Majority of the people who are charged in that criminal courtroom are either blacks or Latinos or Asian origin. So those small either general district court decisions or circuit court decisions affect these people's life, and how could we fight them? How could we contribute to the betterment of the system? One of the ways is through election, through participating in an election, through voting people who are progressive. I have seen progress now here in my area in Northern Virginia. We have 3 or 4 progressive prosecutors elected, and they declared that, you know, we're not going to enforce like the drug laws or some of the laws that affect Black people or minorities who are, you know, crowding the court. So those you know, elections, those results came through participation, through people going and kicking out those prosecutors, those you know, members of Congress or members of the House of Delegates in Virginia who are part of the system. So that's why elections matter. Elections matter, not only the congressional election, but our local election, where prosecutors are here to enforce the law. So if we can change the members of the delegation, the House delegation, or the or the Senate, that's also good. But also in our local election, we have to participate. You know, the court is very good. The court has been, it is the court, as you may know, who made Brown versus the Board of Education and some other you know, anti-discriminatory measures. But also our local representatives are also matter. We can see things that we don't really, as I say, we don't really consider as discriminatory or part of the systemic racism, but like city ordinances that would not allow, you know, 5 or 6 people living in an apartment, or prohibit building of apartments, or landlord friendly provisions, and eviction laws, or implement provisions or laws that would have not only disproportionate impact but affect our life in a bad way. And that's why election really important. That's why election of governors, delegates, prosecutors, senators, state senators, mayors, and also in this case, United States senators is very important. So what can we do? What we should do is, you know, have a forum like this where people, you know, express their views, converse, and exchange ideas. And also, we should register to vote. And if we have registered to vote, we also ask our friends and relatives to register to vote. And once we are registered, we have to go and cast a ballot. But in this time, if we're not going, then we have to mail our ballot in a timely manner. So this is how we contribute to the betterment of our life and the life of our friends and relatives, and also to change the system that has gone so far from legalizing or endorsing slavery to where we are now. We have to do what we have to do in our part, like understand what's going on, participate in this democratic process, not only getting the citizenship just to simply get the passport, but also to go and vote. This is, as I said, as you may know, this is a country where even in court there were different Bible for Black people, white people. There were different entrance to the courtroom, where there were different lunch counters. But we have come a long way, and we have to appreciate the people who fought, who paid a high price for us to be here, for us to even have this conference, for us to contribute to the democratic process in this country. And people paid dearly to have a right to vote. They died, they've been arrested, they've been tortured, they've been brutalized, mistreated in court, and also mistreated in jail by the sheriff, by the mayor, by the Ku Klux Klan, as Shakespeare mentioned. So we also pay tribute to those when we go and cast our ballot, when we go and register to vote, and also we are working for our kids, for our cousins, for our nephews, nieces. And this is not really simply going to vote for because we like one candidate or the other, but it is working to change the system. So by electing progressive congressmen, by electing progressive senators, we not only working for ourselves, but for our kids, for our nephews, for our nieces. So I appreciate this opportunity to be here for expressing my views. Thank you. This is what I want to say. Thanks.
Mawit, I don't think you have the Attorney Dereja's bio. I haven't. I just did it lately, so I'm going to introduce Attorney Dereja so he can say a few words if you allow me, Mawit.
Please keep it short.
Okay. Attorney Dereja, welcome. And I think I've asked Yasin to make you co-host also if you have anything to show us. And when I asked you for your bio,
he's the co-host.
The website. Come again? When I asked for your bio, the website you referred me didn't have a short bio, so I'm going to go through that, Dereja. Bear with me. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen. So this computer has a problem, so I'm not going to share the screen. His bar admissions in the Great Commonwealth of Massachusetts was 1997. He works at the U.S. District Court of Massachusetts, First and Fourth Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. His education, 1997, he got his jurisprudence degree, cum laude, at Suffolk University Law School, Dean's List. Boy, editor of the year, Suffolk University Law School, Transitional Law Review, 1994, BA Government and Politics at George Mason University. Professional associations, as a member of a lot of lawyers associations. Attorney Dempsey is a highly experienced attorney who specializes in criminal defense of major crimes in state and federal courts. He has served as a lead attorney in a number of high-profile cases. In addition to criminal defense, he handles complex litigations in civil cases. And in the interest of time, I can refer you to his website to get the balance of his qualifications. Attorney Dempsey has been recognized as a super lawyer by his peers each year since 2014. Without further ado, Derja, take it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. And thank you for inviting me. I received the invitation late. I wasn't given any specific topic to discuss. So I would just briefly share my views as to why this election is so important and why it's very important for all of us to make sure that not only we, well, those of you who've already voted and the rest of the country, but that those of you who live in Atlanta and in Georgia, that not only you should vote, but also you should consider contacting at least 5 to 10 people that you know and encourage them to vote. I'm going to talk about 3 things that come readily to mind when I think of how important this election is. The first thing is that this election will determine who's going to control the Senate. And why that is important is whoever gets to control the Senate controls the leadership of not only every committee of the Senate, but what is brought to the floor of the Senate. And the way Congress works is even if the House of Representatives, the 435 people that are under right now the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, even if they pass a law, it has to go to the Senate. And it's up to the Senate to take that up and bring it up for a vote. If the majority leader, who will be elected based on the majority party that controls the Senate, currently the Senate is controlled by Republicans, and Mitch McConnell has been the majority leader for many years. He controls the agenda and what gets considered by the Senate. And I look at it from not only as an American, but also a person of Ethiopian descent, an Ethiopian American. And there are things that are important to me. Foreign policy is very important to me. Immigration policy is important to me. Healthcare is very important to me. And the reason why these things matter to us is because they directly affect us and those that we love. The entire Horn of Africa currently is in turmoil. And that is in large part due to the absence of US leadership from the world sphere since Trump took office. The United States has not only neglected, but I would say it was a criminal omission on the part of the US president not to engage with Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt, and instead fuel the conflict by suggesting Egypt should have bombed the dam Ethiopia was building. And that kind of US lack of leadership and is extremely dismaying to us, but also has huge ramifications to the security of the Horn of Africa in general, and Ethiopia in particular. So as someone who has family in Ethiopia, as most of you do, I'm very much concerned about the absence of US leadership from the world here. I am also very concerned about reforms that are needed in this country that affect people that are dear to me, and I know most of you have members who be affected by immigration reform as well. The US have tried to pass immigration reform several times, and each time the House would pass comprehensive immigration reform and the Senate would kill it. Even when Republicans teamed up with a number of Democrats and passed a compromise, it was a gang of 8th, I think they called them, compromise bill. Mitch McConnell killed it as head of the Senate. So you
Council,
have
if you can wrap it up in 2 minutes, we have the campaign joining us in about 7:15.
you have a chance.
Then we'll have a question and answer period later on.
You have a chance to vote for 2 Democratic Senate candidates, and your vote will not only affect the future of the U.S., but also the future of Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney. And Navi, thank you very much for a job well done, as well as Dr. Sahai Alamayo. So at exactly 7:15, I promised the Black Man campaign that will transition to the town hall. Do we have somebody from Blackman? Mr. Blackman, are you in? Is a Blackman campaign represented? Otherwise, we'll go to question and answer if he's late. Can you call his campaign manager, Mr. Yonas? Emily? Okay, go ahead. If you have a couple of questions while we are waiting for Mr. Blackman, we'll entertain questions now for our four distinguished speakers. Go ahead, Dr. Sai.
So here's a question I have wanted to ask the politicians, but perhaps our attorney friends could enlighten us on this. There's a great deal of fear out there among Democratic electors that the past might repeat itself. Hopefully we'll succeed on Tuesday, and therefore the Democratic side will be in control of the United States government. There's the history that when Democrats are in charge of all the White House and the 2 chambers of Congress, are always worried about the midterm election coming up in 2 years, and are fearful to address what electors had voted for, had hoped for fear that that might be viewed as extremist and scare the next cycle of elections. So, what's your sense of where we're going on such critical things as reform of the criminal justice system, very important issue to low and middle income families, student debt forgiveness, and similar issues such as that? Are we likely, if we succeed in controlling both the Senate, the Senate, the House, and the White House, that Democrats would actually bite the bullet and do what needs to be done?
Well, let me say this. It depends. I mean, I think it's based on what the Senate and the House with the president could deliver, and it also depends on the economy and about the response to COVID-19, the vaccine distribution, the death rate, and about how they restart the economy, and also the thing that they're going to change, like that matter for for the people, be it the student loan, be it on immigration. But I think the challenging issue is the economy, how they going to fix the economy and restart the economy. If they do good, then I think they could control the Senate and the House again.
Okay, thank you. Do we still have Attorney and Attorney the literature guy, Shakespeare, without the E? Any other question? You want to add anything to this?
No, actually, I don't have a lot.
Okay, I have
Can
a
you
question.
guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. That's good. Let me ask you a question. I mean, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Even though we all have rights and it's written into code and stuff, but we're still seeing Black people being discriminated left and right. One of the things we wrote for you guys as a guide was the impact of systemic racism and implicit bias. I mean, these are things you cannot. Nobody's going to come at work and tell you you're Black, you cannot work here. It's impossible. But there's an implicit bias. It's kicked in, it's baked in, but it affects our career, our health care, the injustice we see. How can we change that through the power of the vote and civic engagement by teaching the electorate?
I want to say something on that.
Go ahead, Jack.
I'm actually currently serving on a 12-person police reform task for the city of Newton, where I live. The mayor constituted the task force and gave us about $200,000 to study what needs to be changed and come up with recommendations by end of February. And we've been looking at a number of issues, including implicit bias. And I think, you know, policing in this country is very decentralized. Obviously, it's the federal standard is important, but we have to think of policing from a local point of view. Each community is different, their needs are different. What may work in one city may not work in another. And it's really important to start at county and city levels to look at the needs of that community and how to do it differently. Every community does not need a SWAT team or does not need to respond to every incident with police force. We're looking at, for example, responding to incidents with allowing mental health professionals to respond to some calls as opposed to police officers. And what is consistently shown, implicit bias is not something that you can just train and resolve. It's something that it requires an ongoing reassessment. Everyone suffers from it. For example, when Attorney Shakespeare was presenting, he was saying one of the things to look at is this action of the police officer a reasonable action? And what is reasonable is always debatable, but police always say I had to make a split-second decision. And if you're making a split-second decision with a whole host of biases you already have, for example, your encounter with an old white lady versus a young Black man, your split-second decision after looking at the hand of that person move is completely different. So making the person not only aware of it, but also how it affects the decision-making process is a monumental task that is best done at the local micro level. And we have to engage with not just the state, but our cities and mayors and address those issues at that time.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney. I'm going to give Mr. Dullah Abdu, I think he's from Houston, and Gabe Hamda from Springfield, Virginia. They have a couple of quick questions to ask their question. We're waiting for Mr. Blackman. He is en route. He's going to call from wherever he is. So while we're doing that, I'll give my brother Dullah, go ahead and ask your question. You have good question as well as Gabe. Can you hear me? You can unmute yourself, please.
Okay. My question is in regard the root cause of judicial inequalities and its source. So the quotation could be economic inequality, and unless you, I think we have very prominent lawyers here. It's a matter of representation in court, in other areas, where you live, where you go to school, what you drive. All these things are related, intertwined to economic issues. So, my question is to, legislators, senators, congressmen, whoever they are, if they are in our midst, unless really the root cause, starting 400 years of systematic racism, slavery, that deprived Black people owning resources that will put them in middle class or upper class status, that kept them to live in ghettos and barrios. For that reason, unless we really rectify income inequality through mobility, quality education, or access to technology, STEM education, or reparation, how do you address the issue of judicial inequalities unless you can tackle income inequality?
Thank you. How do you address the judicial inequalities without addressing the income inequality as well as the educational inequalities? That's a good question, and I'll let Gabe also ask his question, and then we have three of our speakers still here, the two attorneys as well as Ms. Hannah. Go ahead, Gabe.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for organizing this town hall meeting. I'm really enjoying the presentation and just very grateful for the organizers. I have actually three questions for three groups. The first one is for anyone from the Georgia area. If you can, do you mind just, I don't live in Georgia, but I'm curious about what goes on. So if you can just tell us how the, the voter drive is going, how is the Ethiopian community engaged, energized in this? What are the local polls looking like? Your opinion about the strengths and vulnerabilities of each camp. So if you can just give us some reality check, I really appreciate it. So that's for Georgia. Anyone from Georgia area who is on the ground, just give us a feel for how things are going on the ground. Now, another question is for Eskender. If I'm not mistaken, you represent an organization called We Can, a global Ethiopian community organization. So I appreciate it if you can give us a 10-second public service commercial on your organization and your future goals in mobilizing community engagement and any assistance you may need. Last question for the attorneys. I'll just say all of them and then you guys can take your time to respond. So my last question is for the attorneys and the question of messaging. We are, Ethiopians in the diaspora and many other communities of color, different interests and such. So if you have any opinion about messaging, we don't live in an isolated community. We live with other people. We live with white people. We live with Black people. We live with people with different views and such. So any suggestions about messaging? Okay. So I hope that is clear. So I appreciate hearing your comments on those three questions, and I'll mute and listen. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Gabe. We're going to hold on to the status of the campaign in Georgia. We are waiting for Mr. Black to come in.
We have no phone.
Could you please mute if you are not speaking? So we'll move that one. I'm going to go to the first question. Either Ms. Hannah as well as one of the lawyers. You can address that. can you really talk about justice and fair play without addressing the income inequality, educational inequalities, the root cause? Education is a great equalizer, and then we'll move on to the other questions. The Georgia status is going to wait, and then I'll say a few words about weekend.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can try. I can try to address that. In fact, without addressing the income inequality and educational inequality and other inequalities, you cannot address judicial inequality or the injustice, the widespread injustice in the judicial system. For example, just to give you an example, who becomes judges? For example, in my state, in Washington state, and I know in many states, judges run for election. To run for election in this country, nowadays it costs a lot of money. You have to buy a TV ad, you have to be in the newspaper, and you have to hire staff. And who can afford this? People who can afford this are like, that you have to be fourth or fifth generation of lawyers or come from a wealthy family, connected family. When you have a fundraiser, there are a lot of rich people coming and donating, the maximum amount. In my state, I think it's $3,700 or $4,000. Whereas if you are just this do-good lawyer and don't have money and you're not connected, your chance of becoming a judicial officer or a judge is very slim or impossible at all. So the income inequality is reflected, the racism is reflected everywhere else. So you cannot really address that. To address that, maybe people who run for judges or prosecuting attorney's office or the DA, we need to come up with a better system than just a political campaign. Those who can raise a lot of money or who have more connection can be always winning and deciding the fate of everyone. And then the other thing is, one time I get to meet Johnny Cochran, and like everybody's asking him, wow, what? So this is clear that the color of justice is white, and I remember him saying, no, the color of justice is green. People who have money, O.J. Simpson, many people think he got away for whatever your opinion is about him. It is because he had money. People who have money can hire the best lawyers, can get the best expert and prevail.
Excuse me for interrupting you. Thank you for the answer. Mr. Blackman is in, and he is on the road to meet with Vice President-elect Harris. So Mr. Blackman is running for a statewide office for Georgia Public Service Commissioner. Thank you for coming. Mr. Blackman is one of the candidates we have been working with, and he hasn't missed a bit. Every time we invited him, all the 3-4 events, he has showed up, and we really appreciate Mr. Blackman. Go ahead. It's yours.
Hey, first of all, Mr. Attorney, thank you so much, brother, for your presentation. I don't want to impede on what you presented, and I want to thank you so much for that. To the group that's here, I'll be very brief and give you an update from Savannah, Georgia, where I just left a rally with John Ossoff, Reverend Warnock, and Vice President-elect Harris. I want you to know we're in the 11th hour of one of Georgia's most historic elections. It has been an absolute honor and a privilege to have been communicating with you all over the past several weeks. I look forward to continue to be in communication. Campaigning does not stop when an election ends. The needs of your community must continue to persist. And regardless of the outcome of the election, I am committed to working with you all throughout this process. For those that don't know, very briefly, I'm Daniel Blackman. I'm the third runoff. I'm running for the Public Service Commission, which regulates utilities, expands broadband, and invests into clean and renewable energy. My platform consists of increasing energy assistance programs, creating more opportunities for business and enterprise as it relates to investment and prosperity in our communities, and international import as well as export when we look at investments across the diaspora. My family's from the Caribbean. My family's from Barbados. I've done business in South Africa and in Ghana with investment that's related to family office work. And so I'm here on this call to thank you. This is the last meeting, and I want you all to hear directly from me and from my campaign. Thank you so much for every opportunity to speak to this group, to hear from you, to hear your criticism, your support, your encouragement, your needs. It has never fallen on deaf ears with myself, and I will continue to work with your community. Again, regardless of the outcome, I am committed to the marathon. This is not a sprint. This is a long-term effort that all of us must embark upon. And I am absolutely honored for every time that I have a chance to speak. And again, to the attorney, I don't want to mispronounce your name, brother. I thank you for allowing me to come on and to interrupt you very briefly. But the information all of you have shared has made me a better candidate, has made me a better husband, a better father, a better person in the community, because I listen, I learn, and I am not where I am by myself. I've done it because the international community has given me your ear, and I do not take that lightly. So Brother Ezekiel, and to all of you on this call, I want to thank you so much. Georgia will win because of your vote, because of your work, and because of your community. Thank you. I appreciate it.
There's one question one of our senior member asked Mr. Gabe Hamda from Virginia. His question was, how is the drive going? How did we work together with the Ethiopian community, if you can tell them, and if you can give us an update on the probability of success? How does it look?
So the numbers look amazing. As of now, 112,000 voters that did not vote in the general election have voted in the runoff. 3 million voters have gone to the polls so far. We cannot take that for granted. We cannot assume that we are in a lead. We feel very confident that early vote numbers favors Democratic candidates, and we also believe that the early vote numbers favor people of color, voters of color. Excuse me, it's been a long day, but it favors people of color. So we feel very optimistic about our chances on Tuesday, but January 5th is going to be of the utmost importance. As I just stated, I just got off the stage with Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, with John Ossoff, Reverend Warnock, and with our Vice President-elect Harris. Now, to the Ethiopian community and to the African community as a whole, but specifically to the Ethiopian and Eritrean community, I want you all to understand, I was recently at a rally that was in Stone Mountain, and I want you to understand the importance of your community showing up. The population of your community is immense, and it has the potential to have a direct impact and influence on the race in Georgia. So what we're asking everyone to do is to make sure that you are encouraging your community to come out to the polls. This is very important. We have a very diverse campaign. My campaign represents individuals from 3 separate continents. My campaign manager is a Muslim woman. I have always been invested in the Caribbean and in Africa, and that is not going to change as I become the next public service commissioner in Georgia. So I want you all to know I have a vested interest in this call for more reasons than just asking for your vote.
Good luck. We really appreciate this. You're free to go. Safe trip, and good luck.
Thank
Tuesday.
you.
We'll pray for you.
Thank you. I'm a Singanalo. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.